Hi, I'm Peter from Coffee Parts, and on the last video we did of the Varia VS3, we asked a question. We asked, which grinder would you like to see the VS3 compared to? And the overall winner was the Niche Zero. Other grinders mentioned were the Ligon Mini, the DF64, the Feller Ode, and the Commandant. So in time, we'll do a video comparing all these grinders together. But on this video, we're gonna focus on the VS3 and the Niche Zero. But before we start this comparison, if you haven't yet, please subscribe. Your subscription, likes, and comments really help us grow this channel and film even more reviews. Let's start with the similarities of these two grinders. Both these grinders are single dose conical burr grinders, super easy to dial in and grind from espresso to filter. Yet there are some big differences. But let's grind out of both these grinders and see what espresso is like in the cup. We're gonna start with the Niche Zero, and we're running 20 grams in and 40 grams out. We're just gonna RDT the beans or spray a bit of water in, load it in, and grind it out. Just transferring over the coffee and distributing it with the WD-DT tool. Giving it a tap. The Niche Zero produces a lot of body, does like a little bit of clarity compared to some other grinders, but we're gonna see how it compares to the VS3 in a second. But it definitely has body with less clarity, and that's probably to do with the big conicals at a relative slow 330 RPM. Now we're gonna do the same thing with the VS3. Once again, 20 grams of coffee. We're just gonna RDT that coffee, lock it in. One thing we're gonna do different is we're actually gonna use our 58 ml dosing cup, just because it makes it easier to transfer into the portafilter once we've ground. We have mounted the bellows that comes with the grinder, and both these grinders are quite slow because they've really brought those RPM down to be able to change the grind profile. Just transferring that over. And we're going to use the WD-DT tool to just distribute that a little bit more evenly. You still have a nice amount of body, maybe not as much body as the Niche, but you do get a little bit more clarity and a little bit of a juicier coffee. So they're different, and I think that does come about by the slower RPM on the conical blades, really allowing for that clarity to come through. Both coffees were really nice, yet different. One more body, one more clarity, and it does come down to personal preference. But now let's dive in and look at these machines, from the blades they're using to the RPMs, their workflow, and the design. When it comes to the burrs, both these grinders are conical burr grinders, yet they're quite different. The VS3 runs custom set of 38mm conical 6-core burrs made from stainless steel at a deliberately slow 160 RPM. And that's a big feature of this grinder, just how slow it can grind. The Niche Zero runs 63mm conical burrs, so a little bit larger than the VS3, and the burrs are sourced from the Mazziconi. And they're running it at a slow yet faster than the VS3, 330 RPMs. And now, the conical and the RPMs actually makes a big difference. By slowing down those RPMs, you get a lot more clarity in the coffee. And that's why hand grinders like the Commandant tend to get more clarity than the bigger conical electric grinders. When it comes to longevity, the burrs in the Niche Zero are from the Mazziconi, which is a commercial grinder. So these burrs are rated to 750 kilos. With the Varia VS3, the burrs are rated to 150 kilos. So obviously 150 is a lot less than 750 kilos. But when it comes to home grinding, 150 kilos is a lot of grinding, when most homes are only going from 250 to a kilo of coffee a week. Now in the long run, Varia is going to be releasing different style burrs, titanium coated burrs, and different geometries to focus on different coffee profiles. While with the Niche, although there are aftermarket burrs, the options are a little bit more limited. So there is two different ways to look at the longevity of these burrs. But a big difference here on the burrs and RPM really comes down to the slower grinding of the VS3, giving you more clarity. You also get more consistency and less popcorning with the slower grinding. When it comes to workflow, both these grinders have an awesome workflow, but I do feel the Niche Zero sets a benchmark on this area. It's really nice to be able to just lift the lid, drop in your desired amount of coffee, in our case 20 grams, close the lid and activate the grinder. And there's something therapeutic about watching the coffee be ground through that clear lid. The coffee is obviously ground into a dosing cup, and this dosing cup does fit quite neatly into a 58mm portafilter, which is the most common size portafilter on the market, especially when you're buying a grinder of this level. With a VS3, the workflow is very similar. You lift the lid here of the hopper, which is connected on by magnets, and you can dose up to 30 grams of coffee into the hopper, put the lid back on, or the bellows system, activate the grinder and let it grind through. Although I don't find it as easy as just lifting and closing a lid and being able to watch your coffee go through. But it is nice that it does come with a bellows that you can push through the coffee if you want. The dosing cup, on the other hand, is a little bit small, and I'm not 100% sure what they were thinking with this dosing cup. Simple solution, just change that dosing cup, put a 58mm dosing cup in there, and then you can grind directly into the dosing cup, transfer it to your portafilter really easily. And in that case, the workflow becomes quite similar. But I still think the Niche has a slightly better workflow. When it comes to design and build quality, the Varia has the smallest of footprints and a really impressive build quality, so it is really nice. The Niche, I've never really been 100% a fan of its build, but the grinder is an awesome grinder. Now, with this small footprint of the VS3, it's nice in the sense that it saves a lot of bench space, and a lot of people are tight for space. But depending on which machine you're pairing up the VS3 with, so to say the La Marzocco Linea Mini, it becomes visually a bit weird. You've got quite a small machine next to quite a big machine. This machine, say next to Rocket Appartamento or Gaggia Classic, will look a lot more appropriate. So although it's got a small footprint and tiny design, which is awesome, visually it can look out of place depending on what setup you have. So in summary, both machines are very similar yet different. For espresso using a mid-roast, the Niche had more body. The Varia had a little bit more clarity, yet still retained the body in the coffee. And I feel that's to do with the lower RPM speed of the conical burrs. When it came to workflow, very similar. You're both loading coffee in the top, single dose grinders, and dialing in is super simple on both. The Varia could have done with a better dosing cup that fit more the 58mm machines, because that's a more common approach. For filter coffee, we only played with it a little bit. The niche does produce a little bit more fines. We'll do a whole different video on that. When it came to build, the Varia has a nicer build. It feels a little bit more finished than the niche, but when you're operating it, the niche sounds a little bit better. The Varia does sound a little bit like a toy. And depending on which machine you're pairing it up to, the Varia could look too small, although that could be a bonus in the sense of saving space. So which one would I pick? Well, it's a hard one. I've got a soft spot for the niche, but at half the price, the Varia really is an awesome grinder. But I'd like to know your thoughts. Which of these two grinders would you prefer? The niche is an old cult classic. The Varia is a new kid on the block. Very different price points, slightly different results, similar concepts. So let me know, niche or Varia in the comments below. And like always, if this video is what you value, hit that thumbs up. And if you haven't yet, please subscribe. Thank you and see you on the next video.